When life hits hard, the raw truth about struggles you've never faced. Watch now. The wind howled through the deserted streets, a ghostly scream that turned heads and chilled bones. In the heart of the abandoned town stood a dilapidated house, its windows shattered like broken dreams, its door hanging off its hinges. Once a place of laughter, it was now a canvas for shadows and secrets. Stories swirled around it, tales of strange lights flickering at night and unexplainable voices echoing through the walls. The bravest souls who dared to approach recounted experiences that left them trembling, clutching at their chests, breathless and wide-eyed. One glance at the house and it was clear something was off. The air felt thicker here, oppressive. Every step closer sent shivers down spines, like walking through an unseen barrier. It was as if the house was alive, its old wood creaking under silent weight, whispering warnings to anyone bold enough to enter. But curiosity drew people in, like moths to a flame, each one hoping to capture the next big story, unaware of the lurking dangers. As night fell, the moon washed the environment in a ghostly light, illuminating wild flowers that seemed to whisper secrets to one another. Nearby, an old swing creaked in the breeze, swaying on its own, as if pushed by an invisible force. Kids would swear they heard laughter behind it but were never brave enough to check. A chill ran through the group gathered outside, huddling close, sharing erratic theories about the place. A light flickered in an upper window, igniting gasps and prompting fearful glances. What had just happened in there? Shouldn't it be empty, abandoned? That one window seemed almost to wink at them, beckoning and mocking at the same time. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, a scream pierced the night, high and frantic, the sound slicing through the murmurs of the group. Eyes darted to the old house, terror stripping away their bravado. No one moved. Did you hear that? Someone whispered, doubt rippling through the crowd. A rush of wind swept past, rattling leaves and hearts alike, as shadows flitted across the lawn, the air thick with unanswered questions. What was inside that house, and would anyone dare to find out? Uncertainty hung heavy like fog, leaving a chilling thought lingering. What if the beauty of curiosity was matched only by the terror of the unknown? The group shifted on their feet, eyes locked on the house, a forbidding silhouette against the night sky. The scream still rang in their ears, a haunting echo that mixed with the rustling leaves. It was as if the house itself had released a tortured plea for help, or warning them away. Someone should check it out. A voice finally broke the tense stillness, a dare laced with bravado. Max, the self-appointed leader of the bunch, stepped forward, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. A mix of fear and resolve twisted his gut. I'll go. The others exchanged anxious glances, producing a low murmur of doubt. Fear gripped them. You're crazy. Someone murmured, but the thrill of the unknown pulled some closer, even as others began to shuffle backward, unwilling to face the dark. Fine, I'll go alone then. Max shot back defiantly, though a quiver hinted at his uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, he stepped towards the creaking porch, each board groaning under his weight, as if warning him to turn back. The door swung ajar, a reluctant invitation that felt less welcoming and more ominous. The air inside was stale, like secrets bottled up and never shared. Max peered into the thick darkness, heart thumping wildly. He pulled out his phone, the screen flickering to life. Hello? Is anyone in there? He called, his voice breaking the profound silence. It felt eerily out of place, swallowed by the house's oppressive aura. Shadows danced along the walls, teasing Max's imagination. Was that a figure he saw? A flicker of movement, his hands trembled as he crept forward, senses heightened. Each step stirred dust motes into the air, illuminated by the thin beam from his phone. Pictures hung crookedly on the walls, their subjects long gone, eyes peeled open in eternal vigil. A chill raced through him, not just from the air, but from a creeping sense of being watched, another flicker this time from deep within the hallway. An orange glow, soft yet beckoning, promising answers or perhaps something darker. Max's breath hitched. It was madness to venture farther, yet the flickering light pulled him, a moth to a flame. As he walked deeper, strange noises began to rise, whispers, a soft intensifying hum that felt both inviting and unnerving. Max paused, pressing his hand to the wall, feeling the words form on his lips, urging the air to still. He had to speak again. "Who is there?" The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices swirling around him. Fear coiled tighter in his chest. This was no ordinary abandoned house, it was a vessel of stories, and now it was ready to tell him secrets nobody else should know. Suddenly, an icy breeze swept through, extinguishing his phone light. Darkness enveloped him completely. Panic clawed at him as he fumbled to turn it back on, the device flickering hesitantly to life. But the glow revealed something that stole the breath right from his lungs. A shadowy figure stood at the end of the hallway, motionless, watching him. Before he could even scream, the figure lunged, a ghastly wail piercing the air. Outside, the group was still frozen, waiting for Max to return. A sense of dread washed over them. The silence stretched painfully, thickening the air with uncertainty. Were they about to witness the dawn of a horror story no one would survive? What had just happened inside? They were tethered to the brink. Would they be brave enough to enter, or would fear claim them too? The group exchanged frantic whispers, eyes darting toward the darkened doorway. "He's been in there too long," Sarah muttered, her voice trembling with both concern and fear. The shadows of the house loomed like a predator waiting to pounce. "Maybe we should call for help," Eric suggested, peering nervously into the darkness. Max was their friend. A rush of panic hit him like a wave. What if something had happened to him? "No. We can't just leave him," Tom snapped, glaring at Eric. The tension was thick, like electricity crackling. The question hung heavy: how much bravery was left in any of them? "Fine." Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. "We'll go in together." There was something in her voice that resonated, a truth born from a fierce determination to not let fear overshadow their friendship. The others nodded, resigned but resolute. They stepped toward the yawning entrance, the house seemingly hungry for their intrusion. As they reached the porch, the wood creaked beneath their weight, each sound echoing as though the house itself was grumbling its disapproval. Sarah held her breath, half expecting the door to slam shut, trapping them inside. But it remained ajar, as if beckoning them in like a siren's song. "Max?" she called, her voice trembling. No response. The oppressive silence clung to them, making their skin prickle. It felt like stepping into a tomb, an eerie realm where laughter and daylight couldn't reach. They moved cautiously into the dim light, their phones futile against the weight of the shadows. The air grew colder, each breath mingling with a sense of dread that seemed almost alive, swirling around them as they stepped further. "Over here." Tom pointed down the hallway where the faint flicker of orange light pulsed like a heartbeat. The whispers had returned, rising and falling like the tide, melodic yet melancholic. It was haunting, pulling at their souls, daring them to uncover the truth of this forsaken place. As they approached, the light flickered wildly, and Sarah's heart thumped erratically in her chest. Was it signaling? Or warning them? "Max!" She called again, louder this time, desperation creeping into her tone. Still, silence enveloped them. Suddenly, the low hum of whispers split into screams, a chorus of anguish that ricocheted off the walls. It was panic-inducing, a sound that wrapped around their throats. "Get out!" Eric shouted, tearing at his own collar as if the air were too thick to breathe. A flash of movement caught Sarah's eye, the shadow of a figure darting past the flickering glow. It was gone before she could register it, but the memory surged dread into her veins. The others hesitated, torn between fear and the instinct to save Max. But then, as if the house were alive, the door they entered slammed shut with a thunderous roar. "Oh God, we're trapped!" Tom gasped, panic spilling from his lips. The echoes of their breaths filled the room, hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. The figure re-emerged, but this time it was clearer, a woman, her face twisted in anguish, a tragic expression that shimmered with sorrow and rage. "Help me," she begged, her voice ethereal but laced with despair. "Max?" Sarah choked out, stepping forward against the grip of terror. "Is he here?" The woman pointed deeper into the dark recesses of the house. "Help me," she hissed again, louder this time, the raw pain reaching into their souls. "Run!" Eric screamed as a sudden crash erupted behind them, the house shuddering like a living creature in pain. They turned to flee, but the shadows rose to block their path, twisting and morphing into nightmarish shapes. "Stay together!" Tom shouted, clutching at Sarah's arm. They needed to find Max. As they stumbled backward into the dark, a new scream, this one unmistakably Max's, split through the air. Help! The call for aid echoed against the walls, piercing their very essence. They hesitated, torn between the horror of confrontation and the urgency of loyalty. This was no ordinary rescue. What awaited them within that darkness? As the shadows loomed larger, crawling closer, they felt the inevitability of choice. Would they run? Or would they step into the abyss and confront whatever awaited them, knowing it could spell the end for them all? The air was thick with tension, and dread settled in their chests like a lead weight. Each heartbeat was a countdown to a decision that would change everything. Then, another horrifying wail erupted from deep within the house, the kind of sound that would weave itself into their nightmares for years to come. What had entered their lives when Max stepped through that door? Would they be brave enough to face it or succumb to fear like so many before them? The floorboards groaned under their hurried steps as the four friends huddled together, instinctively searching for safety in numbers. Shadows swirled around them, distorting reality, and every flickering light felt like a taunt, challenging their resolve. "Max!" Sarah's voice cracked, desperation spilling into the dark. The walls seemed to absorb her words, sucking them into a void where hope faded fast. "Focus. We need to stick together," Tom asserted, though his voice held a tremor. Anxiety danced in their expressions, eyes wide and darting. They knew they had to move, yet the weight of the unknown was a chain around their ankles. As they edged deeper into the house, the air thickened with a stench of decay and mildew. It clawed at their throats, making it harder to breathe. Suddenly, another scream erupted, this time, intertwined with a chorus of agonized cries that echoed in endless layers, reverberating off the walls. There was pain here, pain they had yet to understand. "Did you hear that?" Eric whispered, his eyes wide, trying to mask his fear. "What if it's Max?" Sarah pleaded, her heart racing as she strained to listen over the haunting cries. Each sound felt like a warning, urging them toward or away from something unfathomable, but her longing to find Max pushed her forward against her instincts. Worth it or not, she needed to know he was safe. The flickering light suddenly steadied, casting a grotesque shadow that elongated on the wall. It shivered and twitched, almost alive, as if the darkness itself was breathing. The woman's face appeared again, her features contorting, desperate and pleading. "You have to help me. Is Max in there?" Sarah demanded, stepping forward, emboldened by the glimmer of hope that perhaps this spirit could lead them. But the ghastly figure only pointed down the long hallway, beyond the orange light where eyes of darkness awaited. The intent behind that gesture was clear, yet it filled Sarah's chest with dread. What lay ahead? The walls closed in on them, the corridor narrowing, doors creaking softly, but from behind them came another frantic scream, "They're coming!" Tom pulled Sarah back, eyes wild. "We can't go any further. We need to get out." The shadows writhed, distorting their perception, morphing into tendrils that reached for them. Time distorted in that moment, a heartbeat stretched into an eternity. "Move!" Eric barked, but the house shook violently as if protesting their presence. A crash rang out, blocking their escape behind them. They were trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Sarah's heart raced, her pulse echoing in her ears louder than the screams. "We can't stay here. We have to find him." Her voice trembled but her resolve hardened. Tom nodded reluctantly, fear blending with determination. "Then we do it together," he said, squeezing her hand tightly. They plunged forward, thrusting themselves deeper into the house, toward that orange glow, an eerie beacon in the encroaching darkness. Another pulse of terror shot through them at the sound of labored breaths coming from somewhere ahead. "Max?" Sarah called again, the plea riddled with hope and dread. She was holding on to the flicker of faith, the faith that he could still be there, waiting for them. But with every step, she felt the shadows breathing, closing in, licking at their feet like flames. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them. They tumbled forward, and Sarah felt herself slipping, gravity pulling her toward an abyss that yawned beneath the floor. "Sarah!" Eric cried, grasping for her hand. The edges of the world blurred, dark fingers tugged at her, calling her to let go. Would she surrender to the void or fight back against the crushing inevitability? With a desperate lunge, she caught Eric's hand just in time. He pulled her back, but the figure stood watch, silent and ominous. "You must choose," it intoned, its voice echoing against the multitude of screams around them, colliding like thunder. The weight of their decision hung heavily in the air. They had come for Max, but could they save him without losing themselves in this dark labyrinth? The echoes around them grew louder, swirling into a piercing crescendo as unknown forces began to stir, a wave built on the foundations of despair. One choice awaited, their next step could shatter everything. What unseen horrors lingered beyond the orange glow? They had to find out or risk letting the darkness consume them entirely. A deafening silence fell as the figure loomed before them, its twisted face reflecting their deepest fears. Sarah could feel the chill creeping down her spine, tightening her chest as if an unseen hand were squeezing the breath out of her. Time felt frozen, each second stretching into infinity. Just tell us what to do." Tom's voice wavered, desperation seeping through the cracks of his bravado. The figure's mouth moved, but no sound emerged. Instead, it turned towards the flickering light, gesturing once again down the corridor. "Enough with the games. Just tell us where Max is." Sarah cried out, her frustration mingling with terror. In response, the shadows thickened, swallowing the light and dragging the warmth away. A low, growling noise rose from the depths of the corridor, vibrating through their very bones. Eric trembled alongside her, the fear palpable like a storm crackling in the air. "Go to him." The figure finally rasped, its voice a dry whisper that rattled with centuries of untold stories. "But own your fear or be devoured by it." The vague warning hung heavy between them, twisting their stomachs into knots. Was this some form of trick? Could they trust the specter, or was it another trap set to ensnare them? "Are you serious? We just let it lead us." Tom countered, sweat trickling down his brow. "We can't blindly trust this thing." Sarah's heart raced, her instincts warring with her desperation. "What choice do we have? We have to find Max." As if in response to her determination, a sudden rush of air shot through the corridor, damp and heavy, stirring the dust around their feet. It felt alive, almost sentient, curling around them like a hungry fog. "Then go." The figure commanded, its voice gaining force, the shadows at its feet writhing in anticipation. Sarah squeezed Eric's hand tightly, a link to hold onto amidst the chaos. "We need to move now." Together, they stepped forward into the darkness, the oppressive weight of the house pressing down on them. Sarah's senses went into overdrive. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like thunder, every whisper of wind felt like a breath of the damned. They ventured deeper into the gloom. The orange light they had followed flickered further ahead, pulsating like a heartbeat, pulling them toward it, toward Max. But it wasn't just shadows lurking. The air was thick with something unnameable, a sense of dread that settled deep in her bones. Each breath was heavier than the last. Then they heard it louder than the howling winds, a voice piercing through the darkness. Help me, it was unmistakable. Max. His voice called out, broken and trembling, yet filled with a glimmer of hope. Max. Sarah shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. With renewed courage, she ran towards the source of the voice, not stopping to think about what might be waiting for them. Eric and Tom followed, urgency fueling their steps. But as they rounded the corner, the orange light flickered again, this time, with an intensity that felt like warning rather than welcome, and then they froze. Max stood at the end of the hallway, his form barely illuminated by that unsteady glow. He looked disheveled, ragged, but more concerning was the darkness curling at his feet, gripping him like a vice. He looked at them, eyes wide with terror, as if the shadows had whispered unspeakable secrets. "Don't come any closer," he shouted, panic straining his voice, a stark contrast to the stoic faces they had known. "It's not safe." The weight of his fear crashed over them like waves in a storm. What was happening to him? What was that darkness? "Max, we're here to help you," Sarah cried, reaching out, but the shadows seethed and shifted, towering over him like a monstrous wall intent on consuming him whole. "Told you must choose between fear and love, but it will cost you. It will cost you dearly." The hollow laughter resonated around them, the figure echoing in Sarah's mind as she struggled to comprehend. The darkness writhed, pulsing, and suddenly surged forward, coiling around Max like a serpent poised to strike. "Get back!" Eric yelled, instinctively lunging toward his friend. But just as he did, the shadows rushed at Sarah too, wrapping around her legs, dragging her toward the void of the unknown. Tom lunged for her. Sarah. Would they all be swept away, or could they defy the darkness before it claimed them? The fear that engulfed her was suffocating, but at that moment, she realized it wouldn't just be about saving Max or herself. It was a choice that would define them all. What were they willing to sacrifice? Was the bond of friendship powerful enough to fight the darkness, or would it tear them apart? As the world around them dissolved into chaos, one thing was crystal clear: their next move could determine everything. Could they face the horror that lay ahead, or were they already lost? The shadows tightened around Sarah, their grip icy and relentless. Panic clawed at her throat. "Eric, Tom. Help me!" she shouted, trying to pull herself free. But every movement only drew her deeper into the consuming darkness, the tendrils feeling like every fear she had ever known wrapped around her heart. "Stay back!" Max's voice erupted from the shadows, a desperate sound that cut through the chaos. It snapped Sarah's focus back to him. He was standing there, surrounded by a swirl of inky blackness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The entity was drawing nearer, winding sinuous paths through the air, a creeping menace reflecting their collective dread. A surge of desperation flooded Sarah's veins. "Max, we won't leave you. Fight it." The words tumbled out in a rush. She felt every heartbeat echo through her, each thump matching the flickering light struggling to maintain its glow. Tom's grip found hers, yanking upward to drag her away from the shadows as if trying to pull her back to safety. "This isn't right. We can't just rush in blindly," he argued, his voice desperate, arms straining against the pull of the darkness. "They're stealing him," Eric shouted, stepping beside Tom, eyes wide. His own fear mirrored Sarah's, but determination flickered in the depths of those hazel irises. "We have to do something." Suddenly, Max's face twisted in pain, his eyes wild. The darkness wrapped tighter around him, its shadows clawing at his limbs. "You don't understand," he gasped, straining against the binds that held him. "It's not just me. It's feeding on your fear, your doubts." A cold realization struck Sarah. The shadows were using their own terror against them. They were stronger as long as they let fear dictate their actions. Each shadow was undeniably connected to their own internal battles. She thought back to the figure's warning: own your fear or be devoured by it. "What if we confront it together?" Sarah suggested, breathless with both fear and a flicker of hope. "If we can face this fear side by side, we might break its hold. Tom and Eric exchanged glances, uncertainty etched on their faces, but the look in Sarah's eyes stirred something within them. What do we have to lose? Eric finally said, a bit more bravely. If we don't try, it's certain death. They turned toward Max, determination reshaping their terror into raw strength. Sarah squeezed her friend's hands. On 3, we fight back. We embrace it. Go. Max encouraged, his voice steadying, despite the darkness clinging to him. 1, 2, 3. They shouted in unison, projecting their shared resilience as the shadows swelled angrily, rushing them with a deafening roar. But with a force born of friendship, they charged forward, planting their feet on the ground together. We won't be afraid. The walls of the corridor vibrated around them as if in response to their battle cry, the shadows staggering for a split second as the light pulsed brighter, illuminating the space. Every ounce of their joint strength carved through the darkness like cleansing fire, fending it off momentarily. But the darkness retaliated, swirling fiercely, twisting around them in a chaotic frenzy that threatened to pull them apart. The shadows roared, voices rising in a cacophony of their fears, insecurities, and regrets. You think you can defy me? They hissed, the darkness shivering with mockery. You are weak. You will always be weak. A disorienting chaos surrounded them, laughter intertwined with shouts of agony. Each voice echoed something they had all wished to bury: their failures, unrequited loves, missed opportunities screaming back at them from within the depths. Focus! Sarah yelled. They couldn't lose sight of who they were. We are more than this. Then Max shouted, his voice raw, together. We are stronger together. Their hearts synchronized in response. With collective strength, they pushed against the darkness wrapping around them, feeling its suffocating grip ease just enough for them to continue forward. But their resolve was tested as the shadows churned in an angry rage, forming tendrils that lashed out, striking their skin like icy fingers. Sarah! Tom yelled, lunging to protect her just in time as the shadows coiled fiercely around her ankles. His voice broke through, we can't give up. Fight it. Don't fear. As every ounce of focus swelled between them, it became clearer, they didn't need to battle the shadows, they needed to confront their own darkness within. Their voices united again, louder than before. We choose to fight. We choose each other. In that moment, something shifted. A blinding light flared from their shared resolve, illuminating the corridor and banishing back the shadows momentarily. The air buzzed with the energy of unyielding hope, but then, a different shockwave of energy pulsed through the floor beneath them. The walls trembled, the house quaking in response to their decision. What had they unleashed? As the shadows cringed against the light, something deeper and even more sinister slithered in the depths of the corridor, shifting swiftly, unseen. What now? Eric asked, his face pale. Hold together. Sarah answered, determination blazing in her eyes, but then from the dimness, the echoing laughter returned, a reminder that this battle was far from over. Sacrifices must be made. The shadows hissed, growing intense, swirling ominously. Your fight will cost you dearly. With that, an even deeper dread twisted in the air. Were they truly ready for the cost of their courage? As the shadows lunged toward them again, undaunted by the temporary light, one heavy thought chained Sarah's heart: how much would they lose to save each other and themselves? The truth loomed closer than anyone had anticipated. The shadows roared back to life, a tempest of rage and darkness. Max's cries for help echoed against the walls, twisting into a guttural blend of despair and fury. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet as if the very foundation of their reality was crumbling away, pulling them down into the abyss. Stay close. Don't let go. Eric shouted through gritted teeth, his grip tightening on Sarah's hand. The cold tendrils of darkness whipped around them, scratching at their skin, chilling them to the bone, drumming up memories of every failed moment, every heartache. The sound of their own fears whispered in their ears, drowning out any hope, the light emanating from their unity flickered again, a candle flame wavering in a suffocating gale, and suddenly it felt fragile. "We have to push it back," Sarah insisted, every word a weight she hoped would stabilize them against the chaos. "We can't let it win. Not now." Tom, ever the skeptic, hesitated, doubt clouding his eyes. "But what if we can't? What if it's too late? We're already losing." Just as those words hung heavy in the air, the shadows shrieked with laughter, high-pitched and mocking. "Too late. You are already lost." They taunted, forming shapes terrifying visions of their past failures. Each shadow twisted into a grotesque version of their deepest insecurities. Sarah's heart raced, a rising tide of helplessness threatening to pull her under. "No. We are not lost. I refuse to believe that." She yanked her hand free from Tom's, stepping forward, desperately gritting her teeth against the cold that lapped at her ankles. "Sarah, don't!" Max yelled, but she could barely hear him over the cacophony. The darkness seemed to stretch out toward her, curling like smoke to ensnare her thoughts, the shadows whispering sweet nothings of despair. There was a fracture in her resolve, the soft chill of doubt slipping in, but Sarah pureed her fear and raw vulnerability into a beam of light bright enough to sear through the suffocating pitch. "I am more than this," she screamed, the power of her frustration ricocheting through the tunnel around them. In response, the walls trembled and crackled, an otherworldly energy surging through. The shadows recoiled as if burned, writhing and shrieking in outrage. "We can't do this without you, Max." Eric's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering, anchoring them all in mutual desperation. Max's eyes brightened, "Pulling yourselves from the depths. I don't want to disappear. I can't. Fight for me." An ember of determination ignited in Sarah, fueling her voice anew. "Then turn your fear into strength. Embrace who you are." With renewed vigor, Tom and Eric joined her, shouting words of courage until their collective voice shook the very ground beneath them. "We choose to embrace our truth. We choose each other." The shadows wailed, howling like a storm unleashed, and for those brief moments, the light expanded, banishing much of the darkness from their immediate space. The flickering light created shapes on the walls, and in each reflected shadow, Sarah saw fleeting flashes of herself through the years, the moments of doubt, heartbreak, bravery, and triumph all tangled together like threads in the same tapestry. But then, without warning, the calm shattered. Oh, how quickly it turned! The shadows lunged back with renewed strength. A blinding force crashed against their fragile bubble of light, a visceral pulse of something massive forging its way through the darkness, reality distorted, and escape routes flickered like static on a damaged screen. "We need to go. Now." Sarah gasped, adrenaline slicing through her veins. "But where?" Each direction blended into an endless void. "What's happening?" Eric's voice teetered on the edge of panic, reflecting the turmoil mounting inside. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave a violent lurch, and a fissure opened wide, threatening to swallow them whole. "Hold on!" Sarah yelled, grasping Max's hand as tendrils of shadows reached for them like a myriad of serpents. "Fight together!" Max roared, pulling her closer, forcing his strength into her, and she felt grounded, despite the chaos. But suddenly the shadows shifted again, forming grotesque faces that snarled with menace, whispering promises of darkness deeper than any of them could fathom. "You will not escape what lies inside. You cannot outrun yourselves." As tension mounted and every second counted, a question loomed larger than any fear. Who among them would falter? Would it cost them everything, or could they truly find the light? As the dark chaos devoured the last remnants of their flickering hope, the question echoed, what would they sacrifice to forge their path out of this hell? The earth shuddered violently as the fissure widened beneath their feet, a chasm of dread threatening to consume them. A cacophony of shadows swirled around, raging against the fragile light. Sarah's heart was pounding like a drum, its rhythm a frantic echo of fear. "We can't let it take us," she shouted, struggling to keep Max in sight through the boiling mass of darkness. "Stay focused. Just keep moving. Eric yelled, his voice trembling as he pulled on the remnants of their collective strength. But the shadows weren't merely an obstacle, they were alive. Vicious, sentient creatures that fed off despair, their laughter echoed through the void, mocking their desperation. "Your fears will be your undoing," they hissed, 1,000 voices weaving into one. Sarah felt their words curl around her mind, digging deep into her insecurities, clawing at her spirit. She could almost see the grotesque visions they conjured, each one a reminder of failure, of pain, memories she thought she had buried. "Remember who you are." Max's voice cut through the dark like a light shone on a path ahead. Each word fought against the encroaching shadows, a rallying cry that stirred something deep within Sarah. "No. Don't listen to the darkness." Tom shouted, stepping forward despite the encroaching chill. He was shaking, but his eyes held a fierce determination. "Our past doesn't define us." With every assertion they made, the shadows twitched, hesitating as if unsure. The light between them flickered brighter, but for how long? Panic clawed up Sarah's throat. What if it's not enough? What if we can't hold it back? Then we'll keep fighting. Eric replied, desperation lacing his voice. But doubt shadowed his conviction, a crack in the armor she sensed all too well. The shadows seized upon this, swirling tighter, the dark tendrils whipping around them in a furious frenzy. "Fight!" Sarah screamed, clenching her fists. "We cannot let them win. We have each other." Suddenly, a thick shadow surged forward, enveloping her, squeezing, pressing against her thoughts. In that moment, Sarah's breath caught images flashed before her, doubt, isolation, anger, the very essence of her fears laid bare. "No!" She howled, forcing the darkness away with sheer will. As she pushed back, a pulse of light erupted from their joined hands, illuminating the darkness briefly. The shadows recoiled, but the split in the earth gaped ever wider. Just then, she locked eyes with Max. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. They were stronger together, but the fissure gaped wider, and the shadows roared with renewed fury. Together? You have no idea what you're capable of losing. They screeched, the voices swirling like a tempest. What are you afraid of? Max shouted, his voice a beacon amongst the chaos. Remember your strength. Remember why we're here. As the shadows lunged forward, each character clung to the resolve ignited within them. Sarah could feel the collective energy surging, a lifeline drawn against the encroaching darkness. She couldn't hold on to doubt. The past was past. They had made it this far, they had to believe that a light could exist beyond the horizon. I choose hope. I choose us. Sarah screamed, the declaration flying from her lips with an urgency that pierced through the consuming dark. But before they could fully grasp the power of their unity, the shadows surged again, a dark wave engulfing their fragile light. They screamed and pushed back with everything they had, the hope of escape burning in their hearts. Yet, just as they thought they were finding a way through, a sudden crack echoed ominously. An icy blast swept through as a new figure emerged from the pulsating dark, a silhouette that seemed to dominate the chaos. Time froze momentarily. Was this friend or foe? Could they trust anything that came from this void? Who are you? Sarah breathed, every muscle tense as she squared her shoulders against whatever was approaching, and that was when the darkness parted, revealing the figure's eyes calm and yet filled with an ancient knowing. Let me show you your true selves, it whispered, a voice as smooth as silk, yet laced with darkness. What would follow, a reckoning or redemption? Only time would reveal the truth that lay within. The figure stepped closer, their presence cutting through the chaos like a knife. It was shrouded in a dark cloak that flickered as if it were woven from shadows themselves. An unsettling calm radiated from them, an unsettling contrast to the raging storm around. Who are you? Max asked again, and this time his voice bore a note of urgency. What do you want from us? The cloaked figure tilted its head, as if considering their desperation. I am not your enemy, it replied, the words dripping with an eerie tranquility. I am a guide, sent to reveal the power you hold within. Power? Sarah echoed, even as doubt crept back into her heart. What kind of power? The shadows stirred, agitated by this exchange, spinning around them in erratic patterns, clamoring for attention. Your fears will consume you, they taunted, their chorus growing louder. Why trust something from the dark? It's all lies. Shut up. Sarah shouted, striking the ground with her foot. We don't have time for this. Exactly, said the figure, stepping into the light just enough to expose a face that was both familiar and unsettling. Shadows stretched over its features, but for a brief moment, Sarah glimpsed something if only her own reflection, twisted and warped. You must confront your fears to rise above them, not with anger, but understanding. The ground trembled beneath them again as the fissure widened further. With each quake, the shadows lunged closer, trying to strangle the faint glimmer of hope that still flickered among the group. You have to make a choice, the figure continued, its voice resonating deeper than the roaring darkness. Either embrace the darkness or expose the light within. What light? Tom's voice cracked. We're already losing. We can't escape. We're stop. Max shouted fiercely. Fear is exactly what they want from us. He turned his gaze back to the figure. Show us then. What do you mean our true selves? Your fears are but phantoms, illusions that bind you, the figure said, its tone unwavering. But they hold the key to unlocking your true potential. As the shadows shrieked in frustration, Sarah felt a sudden warmth enveloping her hand, that joined her with Max and Eric. We can't let this dark force win. Not after everything. She declared, her voice growing stronger with each syllable. Then let us break the chains together. The figure urged, reaching out a hand. The shadows wailed, swirling faster, the air thick with a brimming tension. Are you ready? It asked, its patient gaze fixed on them. What choice do we have? Sarah whispered, feeling her heart race even faster. Yet within the fear lurked something else, an inkling of purpose, of strength. A resolve that burned fiercely in her chest. On 3, then. Max shouted. Do it. Eric added, a wild glint in his eyes. As they raised their joined hands to the figure, the shadows screeched, the very fabric of their being trembling with fury. 1, 2, but before the countdown could complete, an inky tendril shot forward, aiming for Sarah's throat, the grip around her like ice. She gasped, the cold choking the breath from her. No. Max shouted, lunging forward. The moment hung in the air, suspended between life and oblivion, as time shrieked to a halt. Everything was spiraling. She struggled against the grasp, feeling its dark despair threaten to drown her hope. Together. The figure urged, and as Sarah's vision blurred, she realized that there was only one path forward. Would it mean facing her darkest fears head-on? Together. She echoed, determination surging through her veins. But what would be the cost of that choice? Even as darkness threatened to consume them, a flicker of light ignited somewhere deep within. The question remained, would they grasp it in time, or would they be forever lost? The screams of shadows echoed around them, the tumult mounting. This is only the beginning. A voice shrieked, tugging at the strands of their fears. What awaited them on the other side? Only the next heartbeat could tell. The shadows writhed like living serpents, undulating around Sarah and her friends. They had faced the darkness that came from without, but now they had to confront the darkness inside them, the fears that could undo them. Together. Max shouted, his voice a rallying cry trembling with urgency. In that moment, they locked eyes, a fierce understanding passing between them. They had suffered so much individually, betrayals, failures, losses, but now they were united. It was no longer just about each of them against the darkness, it was about breaking the chains of their pasts. The figure, cloaked in shadow, pulsated with an energy that seemed both inviting and frightening. Accept your truths, it urged. Your fears exist only if you let them. Embrace what terrorizes you and turn it into strength. Each friend felt their breaths quicken, the weight of doubt pressing down on them. Would they really have the courage to face their fears head-on? Think of your darkest moments, Sarah urged, her voice breaking but firm. We all have something that haunts us. It's time to confront it. Mine is failure and abandonment. The words spilled from her like a dark confession. The shadows sneered, whispering twisted echoes of her past moments of falling short and feeling alone. I feared being left behind, Eric admitted, a tremor in his voice. I never wanted to be the one they didn't need. Each admission seemed to draw energy from the shadows, fueling their contempt, but it also ignited something else, a flicker of resolve that felt unshakable. I feared being weak, Tom chimed in. All my life, I wanted to be strong enough to protect you. But I wasn't. With every confession, the light inside them grew brighter, fueled by their honesty, their personal truths, challenging the pull of the darkness surrounding them. Mine has always been losing you all, Max added, tears shining in his eyes. I panicked when I thought I was losing my friends, and I couldn't handle it. But we cannot lose hope. Not today. Sarah felt something shift within her, a seismic change forged by the power of their vulnerability. We have to face those terrifying moments. We can't let our fears consume us any longer. As they spoke, the shadows recoiled, confusion rippling through their form. The more they shared, the more the darkness dimmed. It was shrieking, twisting in agony as if their truths cut deep. Join hands, Sarah urged. Her heart raced, but she felt a newfound confidence surge. They needed to stand together. With their palms linked, they stood firm, a front of brave souls ready to face the abyss. On 3 we 1 let them win. Max shouted. 1. 2. The shadows snarled, quaking, threatening to rip them apart, to pull them into the void. Free yourselves. You belong to us. 3. They cried in unison, the power of their intertwined resolve crashing outward like a wave. In an explosion of light that felt like the sun breaking through clouds after a storm, they pushed back against the darkness with a force unlike anything they'd known. The shadows screamed a deafening sound that vibrated through the air. Then, everything went quiet. For a breathtaking second, they stood in the white radiance that expanded infinitely, blotting out the shadows that threatened to consume them. They felt weightless, liberated from the burdens they had clung to for far too long. Did we do it? Eric whispered, awestruck. I don't know, Tom replied, glancing around, half expecting the shadows to linger somewhere in the periphery. But before them stretched a path, vibrant and shimmering, a way forward bathed in warm light. The figure flickered with the shadows, now more transparent and gentle, as if it were smiling. You have confronted your darkest fears and emerged stronger. Trust yourselves, the figure advised, slowly fading as the light continued to grow, but suddenly, the ground quivered beneath them again, a reminder of the shadows that lingered just beyond. The house is unstable. Max shouted, tugging at their hands. We need to move. The friends turned back, racing along the illuminated path, hearts pounding and adrenaline surging. Behind them, the shadows twisted in fury, snapping and curling closer. You will always be a part of us. They howled, the threatening darkness closing in. Panic surged, pushing them faster as they sprinted toward the glimmer of salvation. The orange light glowed brighter ahead, like a lighthouse guiding their way. Finally, they burst through a door, a crack in the world of shadows. The sun warmed their faces, and the cheerful sounds of the outside world surged around them, the rustling leaves, laughter echoing from a nearby park. But they were forever changed, breathless, they collapsed on the grass, laughter erupting from the depths of fear and relief. Sarah looked around at her friends, the bonds forged stronger than ever. They had faced the darkness together and found their light. Max grinned, tears glistening in his eyes. We did it. Yeah, we actually fought back, Tom replied, disbelief lacing his tone. Eric chuckled, shaking his head. I wasn't sure we'd make it, but together, wow. Let us not forget this moment, Sarah said softly, grinning at each of them. We faced the fear together. Remember, we can always summon this light again. As they sat in the evening sun, laughter and stories shared, the shadows lingered in the corners of their memories, but they no longer held power over them. They were scarred but unbroken, stronger in their humanity, holding tight to the understanding that together, fear would never claim them again. It was a collective choice that had transformed their fears into a shared strength. Somewhere, perhaps deep within the remnants of that old house, the shadows lay still, a warning that darkness would always be there. But now, it was a voice from the past, one they had learned to embrace and transcend. Together, they rose, side by side, stepping forward into a new dawn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who must see this conclusion. Together, we are stronger.